Imagine standing before the great mystery of existence, where the body returns to dust, and the question that has haunted humanity for millennia rises again. What happens to the spirit when the flames of cremation consume the flesh? This is not merely a curiosity of ritual or culture. It is a question that cuts through the veil of life and death, reaching into the deepest chambers of the soul. Think for a moment. If the body is a vessel, what becomes of the passenger when the vessel is destroyed? If consciousness is not bound by bone or muscle, does the fire set it free, or does it alter the journey? Today, you and I will embark on an exploration into the esoteric, the mystical and the spiritual traditions that dare to answer what so many fear to ask. And I promise you this, by the end of this journey, the final revelation will not only surprise you, it will completely transform the way you understand life, death, and what lies beyond. Before we continue, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, leave a like and share your reflections in the comments. This journey is not meant to be walked alone, but together as seekers of truth. Each share, each comment, each subscription helps this light reach more souls searching for answers. Stay with me until the end, for what you are about to hear may alter the way you see not only cremation, but the destiny of your eternal self. Throughout history, different civilizations have approached cremation with reverence, fear, or suspicion. In the ancient Vedic traditions of India, cremation was considered a sacred act, a rite of passage that liberated the soul from the ties of the physical body. The Rig Veda, one of the oldest sacred texts in existence, speaks of fire as both a destroyer and a purifier. It is through Agni, the god of fire, that the spirit is carried to the higher realms. The body is not destroyed. It is transformed, its elements released back to the universe, while the soul journeys onward to its next destination. But contrast this with the early Christian world, where cremation was often rejected. The body, according to Christian doctrine, was seen as awaiting resurrection at the end of time. To destroy it with fire was, for centuries, regarded as defiance against the promise of bodily resurrection. Yet even within Christian mysticism, voices arose that looked deeper. Thinkers like Meister Eckhart and later esoteric Christians understood that the body was but a garment, and what awaited resurrection was not flesh, but essence, the true self clothed in spirit. Now pause and reflect. If cremation has been revered by some and rejected by others, what does this reveal about our own fears and hopes concerning death? Do we cling to the idea of the body because we fear losing control? Or is there something about fire itself, its uncontrollable, consuming force that unsettles us? Write in the comments what you feel. Does cremation liberate the soul, or does it erase something sacred? The Hermetic tradition, echoing through the emerald tablet of Hermes, Trismegistus reminds us that, as above, so below. This principle invites us to see cremation not as an end, but as a mirror of cosmic processes. Just as stars collapse and burn to give birth to new worlds, so too does the body return to ash, giving birth to a new stage for the spirit. Fire in this view is not an enemy but a bridge, a transformer of states. The spirit, untouched by flame, emerges from the ritual unbound by matter, free to ascend. Consider also the teachings of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo, which describes the journey of consciousness after death. It is not the body's condition that determines the soul's fate, but the clarity of mind and the spiritual awareness carried within. Cremation, practiced widely in Tibet, is seen not as destruction but as assistance. The fire symbolically severs the final ties between spirit and body, guiding the soul through the stages of the bardo toward liberation. Yet there is another layer, one that modern science begins to echo. Quantum physicists like David Bohm and consciousness researchers such as Raymond Moody suggest that consciousness may not be confined to the body at all. If awareness is field-like, as some propose, then the body's fate, whether burial or cremation, matters less than the state of consciousness at death. This would mean that fire does not harm the spirit. It simply dissolves the last remnants of the physical anchor. The real journey begins inward, not outward. Still, we must ask what happens in those final moments when the flames rise and the body yields. Many esoteric traditions speak of the silver cord, the energetic link between body and soul, snapping at the instant of death. If this is true, cremation touches only what has already been vacated. The spirit, having departed, observes from beyond, untouched by heat or ash. And here lies a mystery worth pondering. Does the spirit linger to witness its own cremation, or does it swiftly pass into the next realm, indifferent to what happens to the flesh it once wore? This is where your reflection becomes essential. Imagine yourself released from your body. Would you cling to its remnants, or would you be ready to move on? Share in the comments. How do you feel the soul responds when the body is given to the fire? We are only beginning this exploration. In the next stage of our journey, we will move deeper, comparing mystical traditions that see cremation as a path of purification with others that see it as a danger to the soul's integrity. And beyond this comparison, we will uncover a hidden truth about fire itself, a truth that has been whispered in secret schools of wisdom, but rarely spoken aloud. Stay with me, because the most powerful revelation is yet to come. If Part 1 invited us to reflect on the contrasting views of cremation through history, now we step into the hidden chambers of mystical traditions, where the act of reducing the body to ash becomes more than ritual. It becomes symbol, alchemy, and transformation. To truly grasp what happens to the spirit after cremation, we must look not only at what cultures practiced, but at why they believed fire carried the soul into the next realm. Consider the ancient Egyptians. Though best known for their mummification practices, designed to preserve the body as a vehicle for the ka, their spiritual wisdom also held profound insights into fire. In esoteric Egyptian thought, fire was not simply destructive, it was regenerative. The god Ra sailed across the heavens each day, only to burn in the underworld and rise again. Symbolically, cremation resonates with this eternal cycle: descent into flame, dissolution, and eventual rebirth. Though Egyptians rarely cremated, their understanding of fire's role in cosmic cycles suggests that they too saw the spirit as untouched, merely passing through the transformative gateway of flame. Move forward in time to the Greek philosophers. Plato wrote in the Phaedo that the soul is imprisoned in the body and longs for release. Fire, in this context, can be seen as the ultimate liberator. That hastens what philosophy already teaches, that the soul belongs to a higher realm of truth and light, not to the perishable husk of flesh. The Stoics, too, with their view that the cosmos itself would one day be consumed in ekpyrosis, a universal fire that renews all things, embraced the purifying essence of flame. For them, cremation echoed the destiny of the entire universe. Pause for a moment and let this sink in. If the cosmos itself is destined to be reborn through fire, then could not cremation be seen as a microcosm of that same eternal renewal? Could the burning of the body symbolize the soul's participation in the great cosmic rhythm of destruction and rebirth? I ask you, does this vision inspire fear, or does it awaken awe within you? Reflect and share your thoughts below, for this question lies at the heart of how we interpret the journey beyond death. In the East, Hinduism and Buddhism continue to treat cremation not only as practical but as sacred. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that the soul is neither born nor does it ever die. It cannot be cut by weapons, drowned by water, or burned by fire. The soul is eternal, he says, unchanging and indestructible. This is perhaps the most direct answer to our question. Cremation affects only what is temporary. The true self is beyond the reach of flame. And yet, certain Buddhist traditions add a more subtle teaching. The fire of cremation is not just physical, it mirrors the inner fire of meditation and purification. Tibetan monks sometimes perform fire rituals in which they visualize burning away attachment, ego, and illusion. When a body is cremated, this symbolism reaches its most literal form. The body itself, once the seat of craving and identity, is offered to the flames. The spirit, now without anchor, can move more freely into the bardo or even toward enlightenment. However, not all spiritual paths embrace this view. In some strands of Jewish mysticism, particularly Kabbalah, the body is considered a sacred vessel, intricately tied to the soul's journey. The Zohar speaks of the body and soul as two garments woven together, and cremation, by forcibly dissolving this bond, was seen as disruptive to the natural process of returning to the Creator. This explains why even today cremation is generally avoided in Jewish tradition. Christianity too held ambivalence. Early church fathers like Tertullian and Augustine strongly opposed cremation, fearing it undermined belief in resurrection. Yet mystics such as Hildegard of Bingen hinted at a deeper reality, that resurrection was not of corrupted flesh, but of the transfigured essence. If this is true, then the spirit's journey is not bound by whether the body lies in earth or becomes ash. Here lies a paradox worth contemplating. If one tradition sees cremation as purification and another as violation, what does this say about truth itself? Could it be that truth is not in the ritual, but in the consciousness of the one departing? Think carefully. Perhaps it is not the fire outside, but the fire within that shapes the destiny of the soul. Modern esoteric thinkers support this view. Helena Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society, argued that cremation was preferable to burial because it liberated the astral body more swiftly, preventing it from lingering in the earthly plane. In her writings, she described how the astral shell of the deceased could remain attached to the physical body, creating confusion for the spirit. Fire, she claimed, resolved this tether, enabling the soul to ascend more freely. But Carl Jung, the great depth psychologist, offered yet another layer. For him, fire was archetypal, a symbol of transformation that appears in myths worldwide. To be consumed by flame is to undergo initiation, to pass from one stage of being into another. Cremation then could be seen not only as a cultural act, but as a universal symbol etched into the collective unconscious. When a loved one is cremated, it is not only the body that changes, it is our own psyche that undergoes a ritual of letting go, of accepting transformation. And this brings us to a vital point. Cremation is not only about the dead, it profoundly affects the living. Families who witness the fire often speak of a release, a closure more immediate than burial. Psychologists studying grief note that cremation can symbolize both the pain of separation and the hope of transcendence. The fire, in its dual nature, consumes and purifies. It reminds the living that everything is transient, yet nothing is ever truly lost. Ask yourself, if you were to choose today, would you prefer burial or cremation? And why? Is your decision guided by fear, by tradition, by faith, or by an inner knowing that the spirit is beyond either option? Write your answer in the comments. It is in such reflections that we begin to understand not only what happens after death, but how we live now. We are still only halfway through this journey. In the next stage, we will peel back another layer, delving into hidden esoteric schools that claim to know the secret nature of fire itself. These traditions, passed in whispers from master to disciple, speak of cremation not merely as ritual, but as an act that resonates with cosmic forces. There, the mystery deepens, and the answer to what truly happens to the spirit after cremation becomes even more astonishing. Stay with me, for what comes next will challenge the very way you perceive matter, energy, and the eternal soul. Up to this point, we have explored cultural, religious, and philosophical understandings of cremation. But now, we must descend into the more secret teachings, those whispered in hidden temples and preserved in the manuscripts of esoteric schools. For it is here, in the realm of the occult, that fire reveals its most mysterious role, not as a destroyer, but as a doorway to transformation of the spirit and a mirror of universal laws. The Hermetic texts, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, declare that all things in the universe are in constant transformation. Fire, in this doctrine, represents the primordial energy that dissolves forms and returns them to their essence. Just as gold is purified by flame, so too is the soul freed from the dross of the body through cremation. In alchemical symbolism, fire is never final. It is the stage of calcination, the first of the great processes by which the base elements of existence are refined into spiritual gold. To be cremated, then, is not simply to be reduced to ash, but to pass through the first gate of spiritual alchemy. Think about that for a moment. If your body is a vessel of dense matter, then cremation is like the alchemist's furnace, breaking it down so that only the purest essence may continue. Does this not change the way you see death itself? Does it not invite you to consider whether fire is an ally in your journey, rather than something to be feared? In the mysteries of the Druids, fire rituals were conducted not only for the living, but also for the dead. Ancient accounts describe massive bonfires on sacred nights, where it was believed that the veil between worlds grew thin. Fire was the beacon through which spirits could find their path. While historical records are fragmentary, esoteric researchers such as Manly P. Hall suggest that for the Druids, cremation was more than disposal. It was a way to guide the spirit with light back into the other world. Now let us turn to the secret schools of the East. In certain tantric traditions, Cremation grounds were considered holy places of meditation. Yogis sat among burning bodies, not in morbid fascination, but in profound reverence. For them, the cremation fire symbolized the great truth of impermanence, while also serving as a reminder that the spirit is untouched by flame. They believed that the soul, freed from its physical sheath, could more easily merge with the absolute when the body was returned to ash. The fire, therefore, was not the end. It was the final initiation. And here lies a fascinating connection. In the esoteric branches of Christianity, such as the Rosicrucian order, fire was regarded as a manifestation of the divine will. Rosicrucian writings describe the burning of the body as symbolic of the spirit's passage through the fire of God, purging it from worldly impurities. In this interpretation, cremation aligns with the soul's upward journey, resonating with the idea of spiritual rebirth found in resurrection narratives. But why does fire hold such universal significance across cultures and secret teachings? The answer may lie in its dual nature. Fire is both visible and invisible, both material and immaterial. It consumes matter, yet it leaves behind only intangible heat and light. This paradox mirrors the mystery of death itself. Just as fire transforms without being touched, so too does the spirit transcend while the body is consumed. Now, let us bring this idea into conversation with modern science. Physicist Nikola Tesla once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Fire is energy in motion, frequency made visible. The body, too, is vibration, slowed into matter. Cremation, therefore, is not annihilation, but conversion. The energy of the body is released back into the cosmos, and the spirit, already energy of a higher order, moves beyond the physical plane." Could it be that cremation symbolizes, at the most profound level, the law of conservation of energy, that nothing is truly lost, only transformed? Pause and reflect. Does this idea bring you peace, or does it unsettle you? To know that everything you are returns to the great flow of the universe, that nothing of you is wasted, not even in death. What emotion does this awaken? Share in the comments your own reflection. For it is in these exchanges that our exploration deepens, as each voice adds to the great tapestry of human understanding. And yet, the question lingers: what of those who fear cremation? Are their fears unfounded, or do they carry their own truth? Some esoteric teachings warn that the spirit can linger near the body for a time after death, confused and unwilling to depart. If cremation is performed too soon, they say, the sudden destruction of the body may shock the lingering spirit. This belief is why in many traditions, cremation is delayed for several days, allowing the soul to recognize its departure before the body is given to the fire. Tibetan Buddhists, for example, often wait 3 days, honoring the soul's transition through the first stages of the bardo. This brings us to a key realization. It is not cremation itself that determines the fate of the spirit, but the consciousness with which it is done. When cremation is performed with sacred intention, prayer, and ritual, it serves as liberation. When performed without awareness, some say it can disrupt the soul's passage. Thus, the act is neutral. The meaning lies in the energy and intention surrounding it. And so we arrive at the threshold of an even greater mystery. If fire is more than material, if it is in fact a cosmic principle, then cremation does more than return the body to dust. It aligns the departing spirit with forces beyond our comprehension. Secret initiates of ancient mystery schools believed that fire contained a key, a hidden law of the universe. They whispered that to pass through fire was to mirror the journey of the soul through the stars. In our next part, we will unlock this final revelation, the greatest of them all. It will take us beyond ritual, beyond history, and beyond even esoteric tradition, into the very heart of what fire represents in the spiritual destiny of the human soul. What happens to the spirit after cremation may be far more astonishing than you have ever imagined. Stay with me, for the last step of our journey will reveal the most powerful truth of all. From the very beginning of this journey, we have explored cremation as ritual, symbol, and spiritual passage. We have seen how cultures and religions have interpreted it as liberation, as disruption, or as transformation. But now we stand at the threshold of the deepest mystery. Not simply what happens to the spirit after cremation, but what fire itself reveals about the destiny of the soul. To uncover this, we must turn to the language of the mystics and the seers, who understood fire as more than a material phenomenon. Fire, in their vision, was the closest earthly reflection of the divine spark. In Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest spiritual traditions, fire was considered the visible presence of Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity. It was sacred not because it burned, but because it shone. To them, the flame was a symbol of eternal light, the same light believed to reside in the core of every human being. When the body is given to fire, the inner flame of the soul is seen as joining the cosmic fire, the infinite brilliance that sustains the universe. This echoes across traditions. In Jewish mysticism, the soul is described as the candle of the Lord. In Christian mysticism, God is called an all-consuming fire. In Hinduism, the Atman, the true self, is said to shine like a flame in the heart. Again and again, spiritual traditions use fire as the metaphor for spirit. Cremation, therefore, is not the destruction of the body. It is the symbolic revelation of the eternal flame within, now unbound from its earthly vessel. Science, too, whispers of this mystery in its own language. Every atom of your body was once forged in the fire of stars. You are, quite literally, the residue of cosmic flames. And when the body is consumed by fire, those atoms return to the great cycle, rejoining the universe from which they came. But the essence of who you are, the consciousness, the spirit, was never contained in atoms alone. It is something more elusive, something science still cannot define, yet something mystics have always pointed to as eternal. So what happens to your spirit after cremation? Here is the truth, drawn from both science and spirituality. Nothing in you that is real can be burned. Fire only strips away the temporary, the borrowed garments of flesh and form. The spirit does not burn because it is itself a flame, untouchable, eternal, luminous. Cremation merely enacts in the physical what has already happened in the spiritual, the release of the soul from the body. But the greatest revelation is this: what occurs after cremation depends less on the fire without and more on the fire within. If the inner flame of the soul has been cultivated through wisdom, love, and awareness, then cremation becomes a perfect mirror of liberation. The soul rises, radiant, into higher planes. If the inner flame has been dimmed by attachment, ignorance, or fear, then the soul may linger seeking clarity. In this way, the external fire is neutral, but the internal fire determines the spirit's journey. This is why mystics across ages have urged us to tend the fire within. The Stoics spoke of the divine spark of reason. The Upanishads called it the eternal Atman. The Gospel of Thomas described the light hidden within man, waiting to be revealed. All of them, in their own way, were teaching the same truth. Prepare your flame now, so that when the body falls away, whether to earth or to fire, the spirit may rise unbound. Imagine yourself in that final moment, watching as the body you once inhabited is returned to ash. Would you be clinging to what is gone, or would you be rising like a flame into the infinite expanse? This is not a question of ritual, but of readiness. Cremation does not decide your fate, it simply reflects it. The true cremation is the burning away of illusion, ego, and fear, so that only the pure light of the soul remains. And this brings us to the most powerful truth of all. What happens to your spirit after cremation is not an end, but a return. A return to the cosmic fire that first birthed you, a return to the eternal light that has always been your home. Fire does not destroy, it reveals. It shows that what you are is not flesh but flame, and that no fire on earth can ever extinguish the eternal radiance of your soul. So, what will happen to your spirit after cremation? It will rise. It will be freed. It will continue its journey, carrying the lessons, the love, and the consciousness you have cultivated in this life. The body will fall, the ash will scatter, but the flame of your being will live on, unshaken, untouchable, and eternal. The question that remains then is not what will happen after cremation, but how brightly you will burn before it. Will your spirit be prepared to soar, or will it linger in the shadows of attachment? That choice is being made now, in every thought, in every act, in every breath. And so I leave you with this reflection. Do not wait for the fire of cremation to reveal your spirit. Let the fire within you blaze today. Live in such a way that when the final fire comes, you will not fear its touch, for you will already know. You are flame, you are light, you are eternal. Thank you for walking with me on this journey. If this exploration has stirred something within you, share your reflections in the comments, subscribe to this channel and help spread these truths to others seeking understanding. For in seeking together, we draw closer to the light. Thanks for looking.